22S. We are 22S Radio, the next wave of K-Beats. 22S Radio is 22smedia.com and 88.1 KKJZ H33 Long Beach, Los Angeles. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Golden Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob Flores, and today I have new guests. At this time, I'd like my guests to please introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Deputy Gonzalez.
And I'm Deputy Torres.
Excellent, excellent. So the first thing I like to do when I have my guests is I have them share their story. Let's start off first with, what was life growing up like? Did you guys grow up with siblings?
I have two sisters. I'm the middle child. And we grew up in the city of Huntington Park. My sisters and I were explorers for the city. That's how our interest became in law enforcement. And from there I went to Cal State LA and then became part of the department.
Cool.
So I am actually the oldest of three. There's three girls. The one that's underneath me, she's a year younger than me, and then I have one that's 13 years younger than me, so there's kind of a pause between my parents there. We grew up in Calexico, California, which is a ways away from here. Completely different living lifestyle over there, so when I moved out here, it was a little bit of a culture shock. I moved out of my house at 17 for college, where I went to school at UCLA, and then while I was there was when I got interested in law enforcement because of the class.
Cool, cool. Now we're gonna go a little slower because I like to break down each school system at a time. So what about elementary? What was elementary like?
Elementary was fun. It's a little bit of a blur, but it was fun. Playing games, loved PE and art. I was good at math, and I enjoyed it more than junior high.
So I attended elementary at Dual School Elementary. That is where one of my other siblings also attended. I actually started school a little bit earlier because of my birthday, so I was always a year younger than everybody. And I actually didn't live where I lived, where I grew up. It was technically not in the city of Calexico. It was on Highway 98 on your way out to Arizona from Calexico, where there were 10 houses. And only 9 of them had people living in them. So to get into school every day was quite a trek. It was about 45 minutes from the actual school itself. And between there were a ton of fields. We had fields for cattle and for sheep and crops and whatnot. So a lot of the time, because I'm that lucky, when we were driving into school, they would be moving sheep from one field where they were grazing at to another where they needed to be grazed at. Well, I had to wait until this entire herd was moved, so a lot of times I got late to school, and every time I got into the office and they were asking me, hey, why are you late to school? And I was like, well, they were moving the sheep today. And they couldn't believe me. They're like, we're just going to put that you woke up late. And I was like, no, but really, they were moving the sheep from one field to the other. So that was interesting. And then about 5th grade, I finally moved into the city. So there were no more moving sheep stories in the office.
What was the environment difference like? Did you get to go back?
Go back to
visit the area again?
Well, I actually go out down there pretty frequently. When I left school, when I left Calexico, I was at 17 and I came out here, and it was a huge culture shock. I come from this little agricultural city out in the middle of the desert, right on the border, where it's a very tight-knit community. Everybody's kind of born and raised there. Everybody knows everybody. A lot of the times your teachers are also the politicians in the community who are also involved in the church. And that's kind of, in that city, you're involved in agriculture, you're involved in the church, you're involved in politics. Those are kind of your avenues there. So it was very different coming out here, where I went from knowing everybody to knowing absolutely nobody. And just the size and then the culture, I went from a desert into a city. It was a big culture shock. But I realized how sheltered we are back there where I'm from. It is very sheltered. You get a very small snapshot of life. And coming out there, I go back, and I talk to people that I was friends with, and my grandmother is always has always talked to me about coming back to to share with my community what is out there, because they don't necessarily know. Not a lot of people get out, and I have gone back. I have talked to a couple different people as part of what I'm doing now with recruitment. I actually went back there just recently. I want to say last month. I went back there to go talk to. They have a community college there, and they do like a post academy there. So I went back to go speak to them and talk to them about opportunities outside of the valley there, because there's a couple little different cities that make up that area, and a lot of them tend to stick with those local agencies. So I went and talked to them about what the department was like, what my adventure was like from leaving down there up to school and then joining the department, and kind of the different avenues that they can take. And as always, it's a little scary when you're coming from that small of a city. You come from a super small city, and then you're taking this big leap to something so different. And then, it's not very close. It's not like I can just up and say, okay, I want to go back home and visit today. It's kind of a planned event. So talking to them about that, I actually got a couple of people after talking to them, and they're actually put in with our department, and they're going to be coming out and doing some testing. So we'll see how that goes.
Cool. How about middle school?
So middle school, where I'm at, at the time, we had 2 different middle schools. And I know that was like a big deal at that time, because originally there was only one. So then there was this divide of this small city, and it was a little controversial, as is anything, when you come from these small cities. I went to the original middle school, De Anza, and I had a great time in middle school. It was, I liked the variety of classes, and the fact that I got to start getting placed into classes based off of, I wasn't just lumped into this, this is what you're going to do, take it. You kind of had a little more freedom to pick which level of math you were going to take, which level of English, which electives. So I enjoyed that. I learned sign language while I was in middle school. That was one of my electives, and I enjoyed that. So I did that for a little bit. And then, right in middle school was when I was never really the most athletic in elementary. And in middle school, during PE, I remember they had this system, this ranking system based on the color shirt that you wore. And it kind of, like the state testing that they would do, they would place you in a certain shirt depending on how high you were on that scale, right? So like the ultimate shirt was the garnet shirt, because that was a school color. So I go and I start doing this testing, and I was paired up with this other girl who happened to have the same last name as me, and she was always athletic her entire life. So I was trying to keep up with her, and I remember my PE teacher comes to me halfway through the week, and she's like, you're on your way to getting a garnet shirt. We haven't given out a garnet shirt to a female in quite a while, so her name was Alicia, Alicia, you're on your way there. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And then that's when I was like, you know what? I'm not just a bookworm. I can actually do some physical stuff. This is pretty neat. So in De Anza, in junior high, that's when I discovered that, okay, I can be physical, not just book smart.
And for me, I went to Gage Middle School, and because of budget cuts, we didn't have a lot of art classes, music, or anything like that. But they did offer some sports, going to camp for about a week or 2. And that's where I started trying out for track and tennis. Then I got involved in martial arts, and I enjoyed that. The hitting, the self-defense classes, enjoyed that. And that's where my sister actually told me about the Explore program. And I was always very close to my older sister, which she's a year apart from me. So we basically always paired up and went to sports together, and I had that support with her.
Cool. Which martial art was it?
It was a combination of kickboxing and taekwondo.
Cool. And was this, did you choose it, or like did your parents say, you need an activity to go into?
Well, my sister, a few years before that, she started talking, I guess, to the wrong crowd, which were little tagging crews or gangsters. So they were afraid that she might end up joining or going the wrong direction. And to keep us busy, they started signing us up for different sports and activities in school and outside of school, so that's how we ended up going to those classes.
We'll be right back after this commercial break.
1% of students at Long Beach State receive financial aid. In 2016, Long Beach State awarded $12.3 billion in scholarships. Not only that, each year more than
See, time goes by like
students
this, like
are
real quick.
supplemental student service, leaving no barriers in their path to an education.
I
As a
remember
team,
there was
we
this
know
one
no
student I
barriers.
interviewed, she freaked out.
Philosophy
She
that
was like,
applies
she
to
didn't realize it
you.
was live. She thought it's like pre-recorded. And she goes, I forgot my book somewhere.
You are now
She
tuned
laughed,
in
she
to
never
22
came
West
back.
Radio, the next
Oh,
wave of
nice.
Canadians.
That was,
If you would like to
man,
stay
that
tuned in,
was-
please download our new host app, Radio FX.
That's good. So what did you do to fill your time?
I asked for somebody that was in the studio to like just like read it. I was like, I'm just gonna interview you now. This is my commercial for my show.
Hey, I'm Rob Flores, the host of the Golden Spotlight. Join me as I showcase a variety of guests.
I am what they refer to as an exoneree.
Hi, I'm Carla Perez, otherwise known as Vita Repulsa, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, a television series.
As people have told me before, like, you're really funny, you should try stand-up. And that's probably how every comedian starts.
Took an EMT course 6 months later, and the next thing I know, I was a firefighter.
That I do all my own music videos, I edit my music videos, I write the concepts for the most part, I direct the filming of it, etc. So I have a blast with it.
Every week, someone steps into the spotlight, and it's always a new story. So join me every Monday at 2 p.m. on 22 West Radio. You never know what we have in store.
And we are back here on the Golden Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob Flores, and we are here on 22S Radio. This is the Golden Spotlight, where I interview people every week. You can follow me on social media at Rob Flores Media. Where can they find Century Station? How do they contact and stuff like that?
Century Station, it's located on Alameda and Imperial Highway. We're connected also to the Women's Jail, CRDF, and the address is 11703 Alameda Street, City of Linwood.
Awesome. Do you guys have social media pages?
Yes, we do. If the Sheriff's Department has a web page for every sheriff station, so you're able to look us up just by putting Century Station.
Awesome. So going back, you mentioned, about how, your parents didn't want you guys to get influenced by the wrong crowd and stuff, and then you went into martial arts. What was that experience like the first day walking in?
It was nerve-wracking. I've always been very quiet and shy, but what I loved about that, you didn't really have to talk. It was just mainly hitting and, physical training. So I enjoyed it, and it built my confidence. You start learning that you're strong mentally, physically, so it helps you in other areas in school and your personal life.
Did you guys have to deal with bullies growing up?
Yes, I think that's a given as far as any age group that you're in. You're always going to have to deal with people that might not be so nice. And I think also keeping busy in sports and different things like that, it helps you kind of focus your energy and your mindset elsewhere versus the negative stuff.
Yeah, so I actually did deal with bullies quite a bit. And at one point it got really bad. They used to chant, I have kind of a wavy hair, and down in Calexico it's very hot, and it can be very humid. And where girls started wearing makeup and, combing their hair a certain way, I never really was into that. I just kind of pulled my hair back into a ponytail, didn't use any product or whatever. So a lot of my hair would get frizzy towards the day, and I'd have these little baby hairs that would stick up. So I remember every time that we had some sort of extended break between passing periods, it was a group of girls and guys, and they would stand there, and whenever I would go down the hallway, they'd start singing the Lion King song, and they're making fun of my hair because I didn't whatever. It got really bad. They started doing this all over the school, and I didn't quite I wasn't part of the cool crowd. I didn't really go do the things that they were doing. I was always very scared of getting in trouble, so I was goody two shoes. So they made fun of that and whatnot. And then at one point, it got so bad, I just didn't want to go to school. There was a period where I was like, I don't want to go to school. I stopped going to school for a week, and my grandma sat me down. She's like, you know what's going on? Talk to me. So I explained it to her, and she's like, well, you can't not go to school. You have to go. So we need to figure something out. So then I actually went into independent studies for the rest of that school year. Went through that school year and did that, and then decided the next year I'd go back and try it again. I can't really tell you what switched, but something I was just kind of over it, and I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to go back. I went back, and then they started trying to do the whole taunting me and stuff. When I stopped paying it attention, when I stopped playing into it, I stopped giving them the reaction they wanted, it stopped. They weren't getting the rise that they wanted out of me. It wasn't having the effect that they wanted, and they left it alone. And then after that, the following year, my 9th grade year, a lot of the people that were making fun, they actually later on came back and apologized, and then I ended up making friends with some of them. So
Tell us about high school.
High school, let me see. For the most part, I enjoyed it. I had my older sister there, so she was there to guide me and help me out. And I think that kind of helped with bullies, that maybe that's why I didn't have so much of a problem. I enjoyed it because of the sports that they had to offer, and I felt more grown up, more independent, and I joined a couple clubs, so you had the flexibility of sometimes missing certain classes to go and help out or do some type of community event, so that was enjoyable.
So high school for me, I really had a great 4 years. High school was when I decided, okay, I want to go to college. So I knew if that was the plan, I had to get on track right away, in terms of what classes I was taking, AP classes, what electives, making sure I, got my SATN and SAT2 and whatnot. In high school, I knew I also had to be well-rounded. Grades wasn't going to cut it enough. I needed to have extracurriculars, so I was a busybody. I did, my first year in high school, I did varsity cheer, and I stuck with that all the way to my senior year. I did our show choir, joined that just as an elective and grew to love it. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my teacher. He was a mentor also. I did the literature club. It's like a book club. We would go and read books and then discuss them and whatnot. I joined the French club because I started taking French in high school. That was a good time. I did ASB, so I was like class representative and stuff like that. Anything that I could get involved in, I tried to do. I'm sure there were a couple of other clubs I wanted to try out and a couple of other sports and stuff I wanted to do, but they conflicted, so that was always tough, trying to pick and choose which ones I was going to do, and I had to miss out on other ones. I was pretty busy. I took as many AP classes as I could. My high school ran on a different system. We didn't have, the 6 or 7 periods. We did 4, so it was on a quarter system. So we signed up for 4 classes for the first half of the year, and then the second half of the year we switched to a completely different 4 classes. So it was structured differently. So it was kind of nice because since we were getting 8 classes, and then if I wanted to do summer school, I was able to knock out a lot of classes that I needed ahead of time. So my senior year, like my second half, I had like 2 vacant periods where I didn't have anything to do. But my family's like, well, you're not just going to sit at home, so figure something out. So I ended up being teaching assistants for a couple of my other classes, and I did that.
Cool. So like in movies and stuff, and I guess in some high schools, you have like, I guess the tables during lunch, you have these crowds. You got like the I guess they would say like the nerds on one side, you have the jocks on another and stuff like that. Where did you associate like during lunch?
I was somewhat of a loner at times, but I usually had like 2 or 3 friends that I liked hanging out with. And our school was one of the last schools to have an open campus. So we usually just sat by the grass area and relaxed there or chill or ate our lunch there. But I don't know, if I had to put myself in a category, it would definitely not be the cool group, or jock group, or I don't know. I always just did my thing. Like whatever interests me, I would go ahead and do it. And I was lucky enough that I got along well with my teachers. So if I needed to leave like certain classes to go help out elsewhere, or at that time I was already an explorer. Sometimes we had events, and the only way you would get excused is by having good grades or passing your classes, so that wasn't a problem. But I don't know, I always felt that high school in a way was holding me back. I wanted to roam around and do my own thing. I was responsible enough that I knew what I had to do to pass, but I liked college a lot better because you had that freedom of choosing your classes and that flexibility.
So, yes, I know what you're talking about the lunch tables, and there have been certain groups. And I think there was sort of a division, like the jocks usually hung out in like the quad area, like that center quad. And then you had everybody else kind of just did their own little thing amongst their own friends. But I was actually very lucky. By the time we got to high school, my class, it was very close-knit. So you had your bookworms, you had your drama people, you had your jocks, you had your cheerleaders, you had your band people, and they all just kind of mingled together. And I think that's why high school was one of the like most pleasant experiences ever, because there really was no divide between the groups. Everybody just kind of came together. And you found a lot of people in my class, they kind of were a blend of all these categories. We never had any issues like that, but you definitely could see a lot in the other classes that did exist, and there was a very hard divide. Luckily, we didn't have to deal with that.
Cool. Did you get to participate in like, I know that, senior year is also the most stressful, but yet also the year that you get to go to all these like activities and stuff. Did you get to participate in all that stuff?
So, like I said, it's a small city, so all these activities were a big deal. It was kind of like a rite of passage where we came from. So we did, my senior year, we did senior cruise. So that's when we all went up to San Diego, and you get on this little boat, and they take you out, and you have dinner, and it's like a dance, and you dress up, and you go do this. We did that. We did, what is it called? Powder Puff. So we did that junior and senior year. That was enjoyable. I participated both times. I did it both ways. So I was one of the football players, and then I had to help coach the guys with the cheer routine because I was a cheerleader, so I was kind of one of our collaterals. You had to teach them the routine and whatnot. We did grad night our senior year, so we actually came up for Disneyland and did that. That was a blast. We do senior Christmas, and with that, what we did is the senior class would purchase 2 Christmas trees, and they would hang ornaments on these trees, hang lights and stuff. And you come in as a couple, like they announce the seniors, you come in and you bring a gift. Together you combine, you bring a gift. And what they did is they donated these decorated Christmas trees and these gifts to underprivileged families. What else did we do? They had senior ditch day. For that one, we went to the beach. We had all kinds of pep rallies, homecoming. That was huge. It was always huge, especially football, but basketball was also pretty big. And during that time, the class would decorate floats, because we had a float parade, and it was a competition, and then you had to do a skit during the pep rally, so they'd pick a theme. I remember my senior year, they did, it was Viva Las Vegas, so each person had to pick a hotel, and that was their theme. And I can't remember which, we did Hard Rock, that's what ours was. So our skit, we had like a couple, it was supposed to be like a benefit concert. So we had Madonna performing, and then we had Michael Jackson, which was like the highlight of the show because they put him on bungee cords and they were doing the Smooth Criminal where they're going back and forth. That was really neat. And then at the end they had the Beatles closing out that, and the entire senior class like unraveled this huge, like it took up the entire bleachers flag that we had made. And then we had our float, and needless to say we won that one. So.
God, hearing her, well, I guess compared to her, I was a little bit antisocial, so wasn't involved a lot in my high school. Somewhat felt like I don't know if I didn't belong or just didn't fit in or didn't care for a lot of the activities. The few activities that I did help out were like community service, where you went out and helped out at the convalescent center or with kids, tutoring. That was about it. I wasn't very much into like school dances or football games. I went to a few, but didn't really care for them. So that was about it for me.
So the moment arrives in senior year where people start questioning themselves. They're like, what's next? What school do I want to go to? What major do I want? What happened?
So that actually came early for me. I actually started thinking about that my sophomore year because of the classes that I was taking. My junior year, I took an AP class, and it was AP English, and my teacher, Miss Losa, she was amazing. She was another mentor. Like, I was kind of clueless when I went into this whole college process. I didn't really know what I had to do to prepare, what was needed, and she guided me in that sense. In her class, we had the privilege of my junior year going and touring a couple of different college campuses. And I remember when we went to the UCLA campus, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the environment. And right at that point, that's when I made up my mind, okay, so I'm going to go to school. So I talked to her frequently, and I told her, this is what I want, this is where I want to go, what do I have to do? And basically, she guided me through the whole process from then on out. She's like, okay, well, when you look at your grades, let's make sure your grades are good, let's look at extracurriculars, let's look at community service. So I started volunteering at my church with the Knights of Columbus and things like that. And she kind of got it to that point, and then she started talking to me about the personal statement, and how I had to. They basically had, each school had certain ones that you could pick from. But she's like, kind of make a general one to have, then you can kind of like work off of it and tailor it to whatever school you're applying to. So I did that, and I remember I wrote one, and she was like, it's good. She goes, but, it doesn't really stand out, so, maybe think of another one. So we tossed a couple of ideas back and forth, and the subject that she wanted me to write about, I wasn't 100% comfortable doing, but she's like, just think, this is, they want to know you, they want to know what makes you you, what makes you tick, why they should choose you. So she convinced me. I ended up writing about what we had discussed, and I went back to her with it, and she goes, oh, so much better, this is the one you have to use, this is it. So that was that. That was junior year. Senior year, when it came time to start sending out applications, like I said, I was a mess. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So she helped me. And she actually suggested to me, you're going to be applying to a few different schools. Get an accordion folder and put everything in there that you're going to need for each school. So I had one with sealed transcripts. I had one with my personal statement, one with the recommendation letters, whatever it had, I had it there. That way, when it came time to start mailing out these applications, it was a lot easier because it was already put all together in one place, and I would get the application, fill it out, put my paper in there, and send it off. I remember I applied pretty much to any school I could because I wanted to make sure I had somewhere to go.
For me, let me see. I knew I wanted to work with kids. Kids and law enforcement were my two passions. I had been tutoring kids since I was in junior high, going and just volunteering. So I really enjoyed that. And there was a teacher that was a mentor to me. And she was awesome. She taught me a lot. And just seeing the growth in kids and their attention, just how they light up when they learn something new. So I knew I was interested in that. And then being part of the Explore program, that got my interest, sparked my interest in law enforcement, the teamwork, the driving fast in cars, and the excitement. So I wasn't too sure what direction I was going to go to, but I knew it was going to be either one. And then I wasn't smart enough. I never took like AP classes or anything like that. So I knew I didn't really have the grades, or maybe never thought really like ahead or thinking big. So I never really applied to any universities or anything like that. So I knew I was going to have to start small, which was a junior college. and I ended up enrolling myself in Cerritos College, and I knew that I needed to do my general ed. So I figured, okay, once I'm done with my general ed, then by then I'll have more of an idea, and that's, let me see, when I went to Cerritos College, it helped meeting other people and just different experiences in classes. So I decided that I was going to take, that I was going to go into the academy, and I ended up, my major ended up being child development as my backup plan.
Cool. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Did you know that the survivors are often blamed or feel ashamed about their assault?
We pledge to honor survivors who have broken
That
the
was
silence
easy.
and support victims who have yet to find their voice.
Campus sexual assault victims advocate services are located at the Women's and Gender Equity Center in LA 102 and can be contacted at 562-985-2668. Find more information at our website, www.csulb.edu/WGEC.
Affordable, professional, and located on the second floor of the USU. Electric Hair has all of your nail and hair needs covered. For an appointment, call 562-958-4522. That's 562-958-4522.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Golden Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob Flores, and as usual, you can follow me on social media at Rob Flores Media. All my episodes are posted on robfloresmedia.com under the tab Radio Video Interviews. And I'm back here with my guests. So, you mentioned Cerritos College.
Yes.
And by any chance, did you guys also get involved in like clubs at college?
No, when I ended up applying for the department early on, so by the time I was going to Cerritos College, I took a semester off to do the academy. I was already working full time and going to Cerritos College, so I didn't really have time to be part of any clubs.
So I went up there to UCLA and I felt so alone. So I got there and I went from knowing everybody in my little city to knowing absolutely nobody. There were, I think, 2 or 3 other of my classmates that went there with me, but it just so happened they all ended up getting assigned to the same dorm room and I was in one furthest away at the very top of the hill all by myself. So I was like, oh man, start over again. So I applied to do, for residential life there, I was a programming assistant for my floor. So it was a job, but my job was to be there, plan programs for my floor. I happened to be on the all-girl floor, the only one there. That's where I ended up. And basically go around, meet everybody that lived on the floor, talk to them, get to know their interests, their needs, you know, concerns and stuff like that, and tailor programs to that. So I went anywhere from just doing movie nights, like girl movie nights, popcorn and everything, hanging out. We had like Avon come out and they do like facial type stuff. We went to go see Les Mis. We went to go see that show. They went to The Price is Right. Did a couple of different activities there, so that took up a lot of my time doing that. I also became friends with some girls who were starting a chapter of a sorority at our school. I wanted to do it with them, but because I was working that programming assistant job and another job down at the bookstore that we had on campus, I didn't have the time to commit to it, and it was just too much. It was overwhelming. So I took that first year kind of easy. I ended up not helping them with that and not pledging that year. But then my following year, I did pledge. So my second year there, I pledged. It was for Phi Lambda Rho sorority. And we were at UCLA, so it was Delta chapter. I did that, and while I was pledging, I decided I wanted to take a very active role in the pledge class. So I became our pledge class vice president. So helped the president hand-in-hand programming and reported, the sisters and whatnot. And yeah, I did that. And then I was involved in that and stayed involved in that all the way until my last year there. At one point, I decided to be pledge educator, so I did that for a year with the sorority as well.
Cool, cool. What about all the misconceptions about like fraternities and sororities, like in the movies and stuff?
Okay, so what our sorority was like compared to what you see in the movies, it was so far from it. So our sorority is a Chicana Latina based sorority, and there are 4 pillars that we stood for. So we stood for sisterhood, academics, community service, and culture. So our that's kind of what we centered around. So there was like a convalescent home that we would always go and visit, and they loved it. We'd go and we'd sing with them, play games with them. We did this every year, a couple times a year. We adopted a beach, and we did a lot of beach cleanup there. We did a lot of cultural shows and stuff, and cultural related events, celebrations and stuff, and selling certain, cultural foods. And then sisterhood, we did a lot of bonding. There were a lot of times we would take, during each quarter, we would go and take trips for sisterhood retreats. We had study hours, mandatory study hours. There were a minimum of hours you had to get every week. And you actually would have to go to the library. It wasn't like you got to go study on your own. It was in the library, and you had to go report, and you had to go sign in. You signed in and signed out, and you had to meet those. If you weren't meeting those, you couldn't be an active sister, and you couldn't partake in all the fun stuff, Grades, they looked at grades. You had to submit your grades every quarter. And if you got placed on academic probation, then you had to do additional study hours. And you, again, weren't allowed to participate in all the fun stuff. It was really cool because when we were there, they didn't have a council for the Chicano and Chicana sororities. So we actually came together, the few of us that were on campus, and we formed the Latino Grid Council, which was really cool to be a part of that and write up bylaws and stuff like that. I kind of took a backseat role into it. I wasn't as involved, but it was nice to be part of an organization that helped that, and we kind of did a lot of background type of stuff.
Cool, cool. So now this is the segment in the show where it's pretty much like the timeline. Tell us about the jobs you have leading up to where you are today.
When we first graduate from the academy, you have to do custody time, which either means working at a court or the jails. And I ended up going to IRC, which is Inmate Reception Center. It's connected to Men's Central Jail and Towers, and it's just processing inmates. And that in itself, I was pretty young when I graduated the academy. I was 21, and being an explorer, I got to ride tickets, help out the officers, but going to a custody division and being exposed to that was just a shock because I had never really been in that environment, and I went from talking to a few people, civilians, to now having hundreds of inmates looking at you, waiting for instructions or for you to take charge, and it was a bit scary, and I was working with the male inmates, so that was a new experience and humbling. Just you go with the misconception of they're inmates, they're criminals, and they're going to do whatever you tell them, and you learn how to talk to inmates, which is obviously just talking to human beings, and you get better results that way. So for me, I was grateful that I joined the Sheriff's Department because I think it's a good experience to finish the academy and have to work custody division. You learn how to talk to inmates. You learn a lot from them. They'll talk about whatever they're in there for, crimes, and you just learn how they think, which in turn it helps you working out in the streets.
So I'm going to kind of backtrack and start. I didn't know that I wanted to go into law enforcement. Originally, I thought I was going to go pre-med, and I was going to be a neonatologist, and that was my goal. Then I ended up having my daughter, my 4th year in college. So that kind of, I'm like, maybe not so much. Like this, I might not be able to make this work. I was trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. So I was kind of throwing out a couple of different ideas, what I wanted to pursue. I wasn't quite sure. Did I want to, go the psychology? I was majoring in psychology. Do I want to go the psychology route? Do I want to, go that route? Do I want to do a family counselor? Do I want to go law? What is it I want to do? I ended up taking a psychology and law upper division elective class. And in this class, he brought in a bunch of guest lecturers. It was probably one of my favorite classes that I took out there because it was very diverse. And I had, at the time, I think he was a sergeant, and he came down. He was from Special Victims Bureau for the Sheriff's Department. And he talked about his job, what he did, and how it fulfilled him. So listening to him talk about, you know, how he was able to help these people who were extremely victimized in a very personal way that's going to stay with them for the rest of their life. And how he was able to, you know, help them along with that healing process and bring justice to these people that had committed these crimes. And to hear him say how he made an impact on these people's lives and how, you know, they thought that he made a difference. He did something productive to that person. I was like, you know, that's an awesome feeling to know that you're making an impact on somebody for the better. And you're able to help them through a very dark time in their life. And try to help them get back on track so they can lead somewhat of a normal life after this, you know, terrible thing that happened to them. I was like, you know, it seems interesting. It seems like maybe I might want to do something like this. So I ended up staying after class and speaking to him, and I talked to him about it. And I was kind of on the fence. Didn't really make any moves on it on that time. But then he ended up coming back and doing another guest lecture. Stayed after and spoke to him again. And he's like, you know, what's keeping you from applying? Why don't you want to do it? So he started talking to me about the department and, you know, kind of the steps you have to take. And he wasn't shy about it. He didn't beat around the bush about it. He's like, yeah, you can apply to LAPD and you'll go straight out to the streets. He goes, with the sheriff's department, yes, you are going to have to work in the jails first. It is what it is. And he said, don't look at it as a negative because it's a learning time. It's time when you're going to get to learn things that are going to help you when you get out to the streets. And I think like maybe a week after that, I did it. I decided, okay, I'm going to apply. So I applied. I applied with LAPD and with the Sheriff's Department and started going through the process of both. I ended up sticking with the Sheriff's Department. It felt more personal to me during the experience. I was getting more interaction. So I kind of went that route. That's where I went. I got hired on, and when I got hired on, I went to Twin Towers. Twin Towers, they kind of had a mix of things at the time when I was there. You had a couple of general population stuff, and then we had some females there. We had a medical ward, and then the majority of what we were doing was for inmates who had some sort of mental health treatment that they were seeking and that they had to continue. So we were there. I worked on a high observation floor. So it was with the acutely mentally ill. It was where I worked, it was an all-male floor. So it was with all men. Like she said, it was a shock. The first day you get into jail and you're seeing these things and you're not used to it. It takes some getting used to, and they know who the new person is. They smell it on you the minute you walk on that floor. They're like, oh yeah. So you're going to be the person that they go to and they're asking like, hey, can I get this? Can I get that? Because they know you're new. They know maybe you don't know any better, right? So I was there for a little bit. I waited 7.5 years in custody to get out to the station that I wanted to go to. While I was in there, they made me a custody TO for a little bit. I did that. That was neat, being able to help new deputies come in and teach them what it was to do there. Like she said, I took advantage of custody as much as I could because I knew I wanted to go out to patrol. So talking to these people in there, like, they're more than willing to speak to you because they have nothing but time on their hands. You know, they're in there, so they'll talk to whoever will listen. So learning their mannerisms and asking them, you know, what they call certain drugs on the streets and how much they sell for and where they hide them and where can you buy them, things like that. It helps when you go out to the streets to have somewhat of an idea. You know, you're not completely shocked. Learning how to talk to them and mainly learning to read their body language and their mannerisms when they're trying to hide things from you and you know, okay, something's not right here, you're hiding something, picking up on that so you can learn that and apply it when you're out on patrol. So I waited for 7.5 years. I finally made the list to go out to Century Station. I went out during the holidays, which was rough because that means I wasn't home around for the kiddos during the holidays. Training was an experience. It was a busy time. But at the same time, it was a lot of fun. Like, you build this bond with these people that you go out on training with because you're all going through, you know, this mess together. And it's a good time. You go through a wave of emotions when you're on training. So I did that. I was at the station for a little bit, where I worked in Linwood. I was in the one-man car. I started on PM shift, and then I went to early mornings, which was at night. And then right now at the moment, I'm on loan to recruitment. So that's what I'm doing full-time right now. So I get to go out to colleges and events and talk to people and make phone calls to people that are applying and kind of act as a mentor and answer any questions that they have.
Cool. The other question I always ask my guests is, where do you see yourself after retirement, and what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, that's a handful. After retirement. Would like to move maybe out of state, somewhere nice and quiet, open land, have a farm, just live the quiet, peaceful life. That's where I see myself. Legacy, I hope I've made a difference here and there and made some positive impact on some people that I've come in contact with.
So I'm on board with that. I'm all about the quiet life after retirement. I want to retire. I don't know where I want to live per se. I like the beach. That would be ideal, but that's kind of pricey out here in California, so maybe I would have to move out of state for that. But I do want to be somewhere mellow. I don't want to be anywhere high-strung or anything like that. I don't think I could be retired in the full sense of it, where I'm just kind of going along with things. I have really developed an interest in like working out and fitness, so I've always talked about after retirement maybe going and trying to do like some personal training type stuff or do something along the lines of that to make a hobby something I can make part of my life in a bigger way. Be around for the kiddos, because I have some kiddos and they're pretty active too in all kinds of extracurriculars. So go follow them, help them out with whatever I can, and enjoy time with my husband, because right now we're so busy with the kids and work. He's also a deputy. It's kind of busy time. My legacy is more not so much work related, but I just want to be a good mom. I want to be a mom that when my kids are adults and they're talking to their kids, they're like, I had a damn good mom, or I remember the time when we did X, Y, and Z, just something that they can be proud of. That's what I want to be known for. I know they themselves are very excited about the fact that mom's a cop, and they find pride in that, so there's fulfillment in that by itself.
Cool. Also, let our audience know, how like the unique thing about Century Station is like, they're not just for one city. They like do all kinds of stuff.
Well, Century Station, we cover Linwood, Willowbrook, Athens, the Firestone area, and the Walnut Park area. So we do cover a pretty big area.
Cool. So like me being from Linwood, I always get this question from people, and it's always like, oh man, everybody's always like, where is Linwood? I've never heard of Linwood.
So it's funny. I actually, I had never heard of Linwood. But when I was actually at school, up at UCLA, I had a couple of sorority sisters who were from Linwood in the Southgate area. And they would talk about it, and I had no clue where this place was. And it was hilarious when I got on the department and I decided I wanted to go to Century Station. I was like, oh, that's Linwood. That's Southgate over there. Okay, it all makes sense now.
Cool. So tell us, what is the academy like? The process, how can people follow in your footsteps?
Okay, so for the application process, it all starts with an online application, because that's the way of the world today, right? Everything's streamlined and everything's done online. So you go to lasdcareers.org and you fill out an online application. It literally takes you from 10 to 15 minutes. It's very simple, very basic. After you complete that, within 5 to 10 days, you're going to get an email. And a lot of the times, I don't know why, we get sent to junk mail. So if you submit the application, check your junk mail for an email from the department. In that email, they're going to give you a test date. That test date is going to be for 2 portions. A lot of the times, the test dates that we give, we just issue them. They're done either on a Wednesday or on a Saturday. A lot of the times, they don't work out for the applicant, And if that's the case, it's not a date that they can make. There's a number attached on that email that you can call to sworn exams. You contact them, you let them know, hey, I can't make it, can I reschedule? It is not gonna penalize you in any way, shape, or form. Call them, let them know, and they'll give you a number of test dates that are available so you can pick which one suits you. So you're gonna show up to that test date. You're gonna show up in PT attire, so think gym clothes, so something you're gonna be working out in. The first part you're gonna do is gonna be a written exam. That written exam is gonna be 60 questions, and it's gonna be multiple choice, and you're gonna have 90 minutes to complete it. It's gonna be your basic reading comprehension, English, vocabulary, sentence structure, and some math on it. And if you go onto the same website that you applied on, under the Prepared tab, they actually have sample questions on there that you can look at, so you get an idea of what they're gonna be asking you on this written exam. After you take the written exam, if you pass that, they're gonna compute your score right then and there, so they're gonna let you know if you passed or you failed. If you pass it, you're gonna continue on to the physical portion of the test. The physical portion of the test is a cumulative test, so there's no magic number to each individual piece. It's just do the best you can and collect as many points as you can along the way. For the physical test, you have a 1.5 mile run as fast as you can do it. You have a 75-yard dash. You have a minute to do as many sit-ups you can do, a minute to do as many push-ups you can do, and then you're gonna have an arm endurance test, which is basically those little bicycle pedals for your arms, and just they wanna see how many revolutions you can complete. Again, that same day, they're gonna take your scores, they're gonna compute them, and they're gonna let you know if you passed that portion or not. If for whatever reason you don't pass that portion, you have 6 months to take that again. If you do pass it, they're gonna give you a date for your oral interview. That oral interview, you're gonna go meet with them, you're gonna talk about them, and in that oral interview, what they're looking for is just that you can interact with people. It's nothing super crazy. They wanna know your knowledge, what you have in the department, that you kinda did some sort of research, you know what you're signing up for, and they just wanna see your interpersonal skills, what they're like. After that, you're gonna start backgrounds. You're gonna get assigned a background investigator. You're gonna go through a lengthy background process. They're gonna look at everything. They're looking at credit scores. They're looking at acquaintances, family members, jobs, where you lived. They're gonna contact people that you've come into contact with. It's a lengthy process, but if you stop and you think about it, like, you know, you're getting hired on as a deputy, and you are gonna have this right to take people's freedoms away, so they wanna make sure they're hiring the right people. You're going to start that. During that background process, you are also going to have a polygraph test. You're going to have a medical exam and a psych evaluation. Once all that's said and done, from start to finish, the day you turn in that application, you're looking for the entire process about 6 to 8 months. Now, it could be shorter, it could go a little longer than that, it just kind of depends. A lot of the times, what happens is people reschedule, and that kind of postpones your process because it's tying up it's tying up the next step. Once you do that, you complete that, and the department says, hey, you're good to go, we want to offer you a job. Then you become a deputy sheriff trainee. That's when you start the academy. Our academy is not a live-in academy. So you're going to report that morning, and you're going to go home at the end of the day. You don't stay there. It's a Monday through Friday kind of thing. There are some nights and some weekends, but they're few and far between. It's usually for specialized things where you have to do like role-playing scenarios and range days and stuff like that. It's 22 weeks long.
Time goes by so fast. We have 1 minute left. However, do you have any upcoming events you'd like to promote?
We do have National Night Out. That's going to be August 7th. And then we have the Citizens Academy coming up. That's going to start September 25th for Century Station, which it's a good glimpse for civilians to get to know a little bit more about the laws, what our job is, what they're able to do, and what their rights are. And for Century, that's about it.
And with recruitment, we will be at their National Night Out, so we'll be there with them on August 7th. And we are at numerous events all week long. So if you actually want to check those out, you can go and follow us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook at LESD Recruitment, and it'll list every event that we're going to be at.
Cool. Well, you know, like I mentioned before, time goes by so fast, but, you know, you guys do, like, a lot of stuff, but also you guys, like, you know, help the communities by, like, I remember, because I go to Block Watch, and you guys also do, like, holiday stuff like backpack giveaways and stuff like that. So
Yes.
that's pretty cool. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this episode of the Golden Spotlight.